There are certain kinds of Pokemon that are just begging for a regional form. Whether that be from them having an easily swappable concept, they're already being precedent based on other regional forms, or they canonically have a different form that we have yet to see. In terms of those easily swappable concepts, we have many Pokemon this could apply to, like the Honedge line. This Sword and Shield based Pokemon could be swapped with a different type of weapon for a fun new twist on the possessed weapon archetype. A wonderful example of this comes from Wesco Region on Instagram, who worked with Fungoosmon to create Wesco and Honedge, Doublade, and the brand new final evolution, Axorcist, taking the swords and turning them into tomahawk axes made by the Algonquin people. And when Axorcist switches forms, it becomes a bow rather than a shield. So rather than switching between offense and defense, it switches between short range and long range combat, much like Decidueye and Hisuian Decidueye did with their concepts, except in reverse. Though this form is meant for the Wesco region, I could definitely picture it in some kind of Legends game based on Unova. There's many different combinations of weapons, configurations, and archetypes, and we're barely just scraping the surface of the possibilities of this line. However, speaking of Unova, a Pokemon line from that region that could seamlessly receive regional forms is a group people have mocked since its inception, the Vanilluxe line. This one is so entirely simple to make a regional form, it's actually crazy. Simply change the flavor of ice cream that it is and boom, regional form. Or you could take things a step further like Tubbs AZ did and make ice fire type regional forms for this line based on fried ice cream, with a new final evolution called Fridalux. This is one of very few real-life examples of ice and fire coming together, so it makes for a very natural Pokemon of those two types. Meanwhile, expanding upon a Pokemon who has been needlessly hated upon for years and years. We already have an ice-fire type regional form originally from Unova with Galarian Darmanitan, so really, what's one more? Or three more, I guess. Another milk-based Pokemon that has great potential for a regional form and even a regional evolution is Milcery. Being based on milk opens so many doors to possible regional forms. Just swap in a different milk product and give it an evolution method relating to said product. Just check out these Fairy Poison type Milcery and Alchemy by JW Nuts as an example. It is based on cheese and the process of fermentation that it goes through. The genius part of this mon is that JW Nuts swapped out the different cake toppings of Alchemy for different food items that are typically paired with cheese. I am definitely fond of the bread form because pretzels and cheese were absolutely made for each other. Also, to break the fourth wall, I realized as I was writing this script that Alchemy is pronounced like alchemy because it's alchemic cream, just like Milcery is milk sorcery, not alcreamy. Staying in Galar and in Flavortown, let's talk about Sinistea and Polteageist. These two are an enchanted, or more so haunted, teacup and teapot. Just like the last two Pokemon we have discussed, tea comes in so many different flavors. Green, black, herbal, oolong, Earl Grey, Darjeeling, chai, kombucha, the list goes on. But why even stop at kinds of teas? Any kind of liquid is viable for these two. This is actually something we have explored on this channel in a Sinistea and Polteageist of every type, which just goes to show the regional form potential of these Pokemon. Some of my personal favorites are the Fighting Ghost Protein Shake variant, the Grass Ghost Green Tea or Matcha variant, and a Poison Ghost Wine variant. If you want to see more of them, go check out that video after this one. Moving on from flavors, we have some Pokemon who might be unexpected entries on this list, but really do have some incredible regional form potential. Impidimp, Morgrem, and Grimmsnarl. These three have a bunch of different mythological inspirations. Goblins, ogres, trolls, Oni, the Chimimorio, etc. This ambiguity is exactly why these Pokemon are super capable of receiving regional forms. You can truly plug in any dark mythological creature from any region in any country and make it fit this concept. So much so that for this line I have multiple examples of regional forms that could work. Starting us off, we have a couple from Tubbs AZ. First, we have dark ground forms for Impidimp and Morgrem that lead into a brand new evolution, Grimmsnarl. Impidimp is inspired by the Alux, a mythological creature hailing from the Maya people on the Yucatan Peninsula, which similar to imps are small tricksters, but are said to be found around caves and stones, hence its ground typing. Morgrem also brings in the inspiration of gnomes, which in alchemy are earth spirits, though you can see it has more of a garden gnome appearance with its hat-like hair, giving hat hair a whole new meaning. Finally, Grimmsnarl is based on the Sisi Mito, a creature from Belizean and Honduran folklore that has the appearance of a gorilla with a more humanoid face, and feet that face backwards, hence this line's weird feet. The others by Tubbs are these dark fire forms and new evolution Grimville, based on the Jersey Devil and the literal devil, with fire generally being associated with the devil and the Jersey Devil being a cryptid from New Jersey thought to be the spawn of the devil. Though this concept was replaced by Grimmsnarl in Tubbs AZ's Mojave region, it is still an amazing concept all its own. After that, we have some from Elite Four, where they made these scrapped X forms of this line that are dark water type, based on Kappas. Yes, we have the light and fun Lotad line that references this already, but in actual Japanese mythology, kappas are quite dark creatures. So these forms of the Grimmsnarl line really tap into that. Moving on from our mini of every type video, let's talk about some special Pokemon that have precedent for regional forms. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, we were introduced to the idea of starter Pokemon getting their own regional forms. I think I speak for all of us when I say we definitely need to see more of that same concept with other starter Pokemon. It doesn't even have to be in another Legends game. In another video series on the channel, I've been exploring what an alternate universe version of the starters could look like, if Game Freak had given the starters a different type trio, which is a very similar concept. So some of these Pokemon could easily fit in as regional forms. In particular, I could see the fighting-type Feraligatr and the ground-type Dustoise really working well in a future Egypt or Legends Unova game respectively. A group of Pokemon that are considered to be the most special are legendary Pokemon, which in the Crown Tundra DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield, we got to meet the first examples of regional legendaries with Galarian Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. We are now also seeing special forms for other legendary trios with the Paradox forms of Suicune, Raikou, Virizion, and Cobalion, and presumably Entei and Terrakion as well. Though regional forms have been vastly diminished in favor of Paradox forms and regional fakes in Gen 9, maybe in Gen 10 we could see yet another group of legends get themselves some regional forms. Though they just got a new member of their group in Legends Arceus, the Genies are great candidates for some regional forms. The Fantastic Artworks 218 made regional forms for the original trio, which are Ice, Poison, and Fire type. And of course, since this group has their alternate Therian forms, those would change as well. Tornadus' Therian form becomes more ape-like, inspired by deities like Hanuman and Son Goku. Thundurus' becomes more like a Manticore, which would be an amazing way to introduce a Manticore Pokemon into the series. And Landorus' form becomes a horse, based on the wind horse, which is a major symbol in Tibetan Buddhism. Now we move on to Pokemon that have forms we know exist, but we have yet to see, which could be shown using regional forms. Yungoos, though it is thought of as the stereotypical early root rodent of Alola, is actually an invasive species. So where is it originally from? And does it have itself a different typing in this unknown region? Maybe it could even be dark normal like Galarian Zigzagoon, which is actually its original form, not its Hawaiian form. Maybe they could even be from the Lewika region by Michael Ryan and take this dark normal form. Lewika is based on the whole of Africa, and given mongoose are primarily found in Africa, it would make complete sense for Yungoos to be from a region like this. On the topic of invasive species, Corphish in some of its dex entries is said to be an invasive species of sorts in both Hoenn and Alola, probably due to the fact it is highly adaptable to any environment. What if one of those adaptations was becoming pure water type? Or even further than that, the ability to evolve into Crawdont. What if in the region it originally hails from, which would probably be some kind of American South-based region given their heavy association with crawfish, we could get something like this regional Corphish that is water-fire type, with it being the original version of Corphish, and its new, or I should say proper evolution, Scorefish, which I worked with my good friend Maoistex to bring these both to life. These two are based on the very famous crawfish boils found in Louisiana. You can see on the chest of Corphish and Scorefish it emulates the corn commonly used in recipes for this dish. The region they hail from would have these very hot swampy areas in which they would inhabit, and probably be part of the reason that they get so hot, with them boiling the water around them. This line is also partly inspired by the Miropandalus hardengai, otherwise known as the dragon shrimp. Scorefish has less of an intimidating presence than Crawdont, but is even more hot-headed, literally. And we'll get into arguments with other Pokemon over very minor things. Scorefish use their tail to jet through the water and the air, blasting opponents with super hot steam coming from their claws. Last but not least, we have one of the many unsolved mysteries of the Pokemon world. What would Paras and Parasect be like without their parasitic mushrooms? In Legends Arceus, it is even confirmed through Parasect's dex entry that mushroomless Parasect have been found, so there is some precedent there. Some have suggested that Dwebble and Crustle are actually some kind of regional variant of these two, which is definitely an interesting theory, but I think in a future region it would be even more interesting to get some kind of hard confirmation through a regional form. So maybe Paras in another region started developing harder exoskeletons to resist the infiltration of the parasitic fungus, becoming Bug Steel type, like this form I also worked with Malmus to create. Steel resists poison, and you could think of this fungus as a form of poison, infecting and polluting the mind and body. With Paras no longer having to worry about the fungus taking over, it would evolve into a new Pokemon, Parasist. This Pokemon is chock full of defense, both against parasites and in its stat pool, using its hardened claws to protect itself from oncoming attacks and to open up tough rocks or nuts. Its name combines Paras, Resist, and Persist, as Parasist does those two things very well, and are the reasons it came to be. And those are some Pokemon that need regional forms. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.